As a buff lightning god with a magical hammer, Thor is as destined to have epic moments in comics as he is to wield Mjolnir itself. With a family comprised mostly of badass deities and a series of monstrous and impressive enemies, there's a pretty good chance that Thor couldn't dodge monumental feeling moments even if he actually tried to avoid them. Point being, while the MCU has given Thor his fair share of epic moments, there's still an ungodly number of comics they could and should adapt for the big screen. Almost every major storyline, be it in a Thor standalone comic or a collective Avengers one, seems legally obliged to include at least one extraordinarily badass moment for the God of Thunder, if not a solid two, just in case one doesn't have its intended impact. It's time they all appeared on the big screen. So, I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are 10 epic Thor moments Marvel must adapt in MCU Phase 4. Number 10, Thor fights the God Butcher. When you are Thor, God of Thunder, and you realize the person you are facing is unironically nicknamed the God Butcher, you're probably liable to do a small wee. Despite these thoughts, or perhaps even because of them, Thor's fights with Gorr the God Butcher tend to get really extreme really fast, involving some of the most intense moments the superhero has ever been involved in. The most extreme of these fights has to be the one within Thor God of Thunder number 5, which involves Thor hacking off one of the Butcher's arms. As epic a fight as this is, it only gets all the more so when it is discovered that defeating Gorr here isn't the end, as Thor has actually only faced a small portion of the Butcher's true powers. As far as future enemies for MCU Thor go, Gorr the God Butcher has to be in the upper echelons of candidates that have to appear at some point in time. Seeing him as anything other than a major villain would be an absolute waste of an amazing character. Number 9, Beta Ray Bill. Trying to explain how Beta Ray Bill came to be is perhaps one of the more difficult moments explaining Thor's lore, but it's more than worth learning to hear about one of the most unusual heroes to star in the Marvel Universe. Bill is an alien who stumbles upon an unconscious Thor back when Thor could revert to being Donald Blake while unconscious, and picks up Mjolnir, inadvertently challenging the original Thor for the role. Despite defeating the original, Bill returns the hammer to him, eventually gaining his own weapon named Stormbreaker, which of course we've already seen in the MCU. The alien ends up becoming a loyal ally to Thor, with the two using their considerable and similar powers to defeat some seriously powerful opponents. Bill is already actually rumored to appear in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which would honestly go down as the best Marvel film ever if we get to see him team up with the Odinson at some point or another. Number 8, Thor fights the Hulk. The Jolly Green Giant has faced the Odinson almost as many times as some of his arch enemies have, with the pair throwing down more than the vast majority of heroes have seen one another. Of these fights, arguably the most epic comes in a fight that Thor, somewhat controversially, actually loses. This fight takes place in the suitably named Hulk Let the Battle Begin, and features a less in control Bruce Banner explaining how disjointed his life had become since losing almost total control of the creature inside him. In a particularly defining moment, Thor comes to stop the Hulk and comes close to defeating him, before the Hulk takes his hammer from his hands and beats him unconscious with it. Number 7, Thor defeats the World Serpent. When you consider that the Midgard Serpent is prophesied to die to Thor and then kill the hero 9 steps later, he sure is doing a bad job of it, because Thor has canonically defeated the Great Beast at least twice already in comics history. The fact that Thor walks into each of these battles already aware of his prophesied death makes each encounter all the more epic, because it shows just how much Thor is willing to risk to defeat the creature and save the worlds he holds so dear. More importantly, facing an enormous world-threatening dragon is terrifying enough without knowing you're literally supposed to die to that creature, but Thor never seems particularly unnerved by it, seemingly just to emphasize how much of a hero the Thunder God really is. Given that the Midgard Serpent technically doesn't need to appear in Midgard, as Thor also fights it in what appears to be New York City, throwing the evil snake into the ring is sure to provide another one of the epic battles that Thor so deservedly, well, deserves. Number 6, standing up to the builders. Infinity, much like any good comic book event, highlights the skills of every hero within it by giving them at least one cool moment in the series. However, in the case of Infinity, there were clearly favorites, because Thor gets a moment that is head and shoulders more epic than all the rest. After the Avengers realize they are wildly outnumbered by the alien builders that aim to wipe out humanity, they arrange a false surrender, involving Thor pretending to plead with the builder leader before using his ability to call his hammer through the enemy's chest to absolutely obliterate the alien he bargains with. Although the builders are unlikely to feature in the MCU for some time, having Thor pull off the same trick with another enemy is sure to still have the visual effect that it does in Infinity. Number 5. Thor fights the Phoenix. Now, I know I speak for all of us when I say we have seen enough of the Phoenix. It's been botched twice now, and it's kind of fatiguing. Still, with the X-Men now within Marvel's grasp, ignoring all the horrid implications of the Disney-Fox merger for just 1 second, the studio have the chance to do some things right. The Phoenix just so happens to be one of these things, and they can save it by going full-on cosmic with the flaming entity. Fortunately, when Asgard went to war with the Shi'ar Empire, well, maybe not fortunately, because war is bad and all that, but whatever, Jane Foster's Thor actually went toe-to-toe with the Phoenix and lived to tell the tale. Jason Aaron, Russell Dalterman, and Matt Wilson's comic is never not entertaining, and this duel with the Phoenix Force absolutely needs to be a thing in live action later down the line. Number 4. Boulder the Brave. Unlike the vast majority of moments that could and should be adapted for the next MCU film featuring Thor, this moment involves simply a conversation that Thor has with his half-brother Boulder. The impressive warrior, upon death, is forced by the Queen of the Norse underworld to fight and kill everyone he ever killed in his life, forcing him to kill tens of thousands in one extensive battle. By the time the ordeal is over, Boulder's hair has turned positively white, and his staunch love of battle has been completely destroyed by the brutality he has undergone. The fact that Boulder manages to quite calmly tell Thor all of this while preparing to go back to hell with him makes this moment maybe the most badass anecdote told in comics history. Number 3. Thor vs. Apocalypse. Apocalypse is one of the more undeniably overpowered mutants in the entire history of Marvel, with his blood alone being powerful enough to restore other mutants' powers. Yet, in Axis, he falls to Thor, with the entire fight being pretty heavily one-sided in the God of Thunder's favor. In fact, the only reason Thor doesn't outright kill him is that he's surrounded by a bunch of other people trying to murder him that better require his attention. It's probably one of the biggest reminders of just how far a pissed-off Thor can go in terms of fighting prowess, and as such, it seems inevitable that it'll at least be referenced at some point in the near future. This scene has to make the screen for some film or another. Number 2. Thor embraces the end. I already covered this moment in our What Comic Character Did You Used to Hate video, but here it is again for posterity. Back during the penultimate arc of Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run, the writer assembled a team to travel the multiverse to eliminate the source of all the incursions. Among that team were Thor and Hyperion, who develop a bit of a bromance as the comic progresses. At this point in time, Thor was still unworthy, but he's able to find a new version of Mjolnir in the multiverse that gives him the power of being unworthy. He uses it all throughout the tale, up until the moment they come face to face with the Beyonders. All perish in the battle save for the Odinson and Hyperion. Now without an arm, he comes to terms with his impending demise during a lull in combat, at which point he fails to lift the unworthy Mjolnir, laughs at the irony of the situation, and then proceeds to lift Jarnbjorn, his axe, and charge at an unending force of Beyonders to his demise. And number 1, Thor fights a Celestial. The sole fact that Thor has faced a Celestial and survived is impressive enough, but the fact that he not only faced one of the most powerful Celestials in the universe, but also managed to do some damage to it is staggeringly impressive when you think of just how powerful they are supposed to be. When a Celestial attacks a planet that has taken Thor in, the hero decides to attempt to face it, despite the fact that it is Exeter, arguably the most powerful Celestial in existence. Thor manages to crack open a portion of the being's skull, and even takes out some of its brain before it manages to get him out of his body, although this does stagger the creature somewhat. With Celestials canonically existing in the MCU, there's a fairly respectable chance that, much like Ego and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, some of our heroes may end up on the wrong side of one in the future, and Thor should absolutely be the one to face it.
Look, my son, look at the marvel that I have created. Comics. They called me a fool for trying to put a dead meme onto a t-shirt. A damn bold fool! A damn bold fool with an ass that won't quit. It got quite personal towards the end there. But look who's laughing now! Quiet! Quiet, my my ugly son, for my other creation rises. Look at the quality fabric, hand-stitched by blind orphans. The perfect letter spacing calculated so meticulously that Rich Hudson had an erection for months about it. And a colouring so deep that I had to buy the dye off the dark web. Oh, for God's sake, Josh!
Sorry.
Marvel. Oh no, the beast has grown angry, angered by our drab fashion choices. I am such a fool to think that it wouldn't try to infect us with its perfect design. Quick, we must do something to appease the beast. Why don't we buy one from shop.worldculture.com? Oh. Look, it's already got Scott Nash.
Oh no!
But where can I buy one? Are you kidding me? This is why I don't give you any extra lines. But also at shop.whatculture.com. Quick, let's go and buy one right now. Let's go buy one right now.
Right now.
Oh, don't you try hard now. You've already lost your bit. Oscar's in the f***ing bin. Ah, there we go. Doesn't that look better? I feel so virile and alive, and it's also fixed your hump. That's actually pretty good. Now, do yourself a favour and act like your mum and spread the love, aka her legs, and buy yourself one of these glorious dead memes on a t-shirt, courtesy of this handsome chap right here. You're very, very welcome.
Cut!
Jesus Christ, mine is so
It's
itchy.
all wet.
What? It stinks. I pissed on yours.
The worst font ever. I want to die.